Hey folks, this is JR with DIY Prepper. Welcome to the channel. One thing that's common among most of the governments of the world is that they want their people to more or less go through life blissfully unaware of the bad things that can happen to them. So whenever you see a government agency telling people that they need to be more prepared, that should immediately make you take notice, and that recently happened in the European Union. Folks living there were told to build a 72-hour kit to prepare for things like cyber attacks and potential conflicts. And while it's always good to be more prepared, there's two big issues with this happening. First, it tells you that leaders over there are shook up over something, and then second, and this is what we're going to talk about today, is that kits like this just don't go far enough to actually be useful. I've done videos picking on FEMA and the Red Cross, so today I'll be picking on this lady from Belgium. We're going to go through the fully stocked survival kit she has in her purse, talking about what's good about it and, more importantly, what I would do differently, because I'm a YouTube prepper and I know everything. Not really, but here we go.
It's Ajalabi. Welcome to What's in My Bag Survival Edition. First, my glasses. Super important if you want to see what is happening.
All right, so glasses, definitely good to have a backup pair because glasses can break, and especially if you have really bad vision, you want to be able to see. And it's also a good idea to have a backup pair of glasses with you if you wear contacts. Maybe you find yourself in a situation where you end up having to stay overnight somewhere that you weren't expecting to. You can just ditch those contacts and swap out glasses. And then also, sometimes things just go wrong with your contacts. One might fall out and you don't want to be stumbling around like Mr. Magoo because you don't have a spare set of glasses. I also keep a set in my range bag whenever I go out shooting, because sometimes I'll just swap out my contacts with my regular glasses afterwards if I don't end up just going straight home.
Next, my document in a waterproof pouch. Must in a rainy boxes.
So, documents in a waterproof pouch, you definitely want to have those, but I wouldn't be running around town with them all the time. That's something more that you keep in your bug out bag. You want to have things like insurance information, for your house, also health insurance, along with documents that will prove residency in case you leave, something bad happens, and you have to actually prove that you live there to be able to get back in. It may also be a good idea to have those documents backed up on like a USB thumb drive, just in case those physical hard copies get damaged.
Now, let's talk about lighting. I have a flashlight. If you don't.
So, flashlight, very good. Hers is just kind of this little cheapy deal that, it'll give you a little bit of light, but it won't go very far. I prefer to have a slightly nicer EDC flashlight. It's pretty bright and it uses a rechargeable battery. So that's going to allow me to use this as much as I want to and then just recharge it. I don't have to worry about, oh, my battery's dead. I'm going to go 3 weeks with a dead flashlight because I don't want to go buy new batteries or whatever the case may be. It's just very, very good to have something rechargeable that you can use on a daily basis. Then in my EDC bag, so that I can swap out batteries as needed, I have one, like a little pocket light that uses AAA's, because if you can't recharge that, but you can find AAA's, you can use that other one. And also I like to have a headlamp in case maybe I get a flat tire and I need a light where I can work easier hands-free. Headlamps are just really good for that. You're not going to have to like prop up your flashlight or have somebody there to hold it for you.
Don't forget matches.
So matches, those aren't really my first go-to option. There's just so many things that can go wrong with a match. They're not the most reliable fire starting method out there. So what I've gotten to the point where I'm doing now is I will keep a ferro rod on my keychain because I do have some knives and other tools with me in my pockets that I can use to strike this. Now, another thing that you can do to have sort of a more reliable emergency fire starting method is that you can have some Vaseline cotton balls with you, and if you have little small baggies like this, then you could even fit those in like a wallet or purse. Those Vaseline cotton balls, they're going to light very, very easily, and they'll burn for a little while, so you should be able to get a fire going with those.
The light.
Er. So, lighter, no gripes about that. I actually don't keep one of those in my pocket on my person, but I do put them in all of my kits as well as my truck. So really, that ferro rod that I showed a second ago, it's just a backup. But with that ferro rod, you're going to get thousands of strikes out of it. So it's good for a longevity standpoint.
And water, of course, because water is life. And my special friend.
So as far as water goes, you're going to want more than one bottle of water, especially if you're planning on lasting 72 hours. What I like to do is I will keep this clean canteen on one side pocket of my EDC bag. And also if I'm just going around town somewhere close by, I'll probably just throw this in the truck too. It's stainless steel, so if the doodle hits the poodle, I can boil water directly in it. And I fill it up one or more times every day from our countertop water filter. So it has water in it that's better than just crummy sink water. Then also I like to keep a Grail Ultra Press on the other side of my EDC bag, and that has a built-in purifier that can remove things like bacteria. It can actually remove viruses as well, and also chemicals. So that's going to deal with most of the contaminants that you could reasonably expect to encounter. Then as far as home use goes, I strongly recommend having several portable water containers on hand. They can hold anywhere between 3 to 7 gallons, just depending on what specific variety it is. And if you're able to get additional water later on, you can, of course, refill them. Now, if you can get larger containers, like 55-gallon drums, then spring for those as well. Oh, and one more thing. Get a bathtub water bladder for your water. You can fill up your bathtub, and those will hold, just depends on how big your tub is, but like 50 or 100 gallons just right there.
A Swiss Army knife. 18 tools in only one.
So I actually really like Swiss Army knives. I know that they don't get nearly as much love anymore as they used to. They've kind of been supplanted by things like multi-tools, but the way I use mine is I have my dedicated EDC folder that I try to use for most cutting tasks. And then I will use my Swiss Army knife as sort of my everyday mobile toolkit. It has things on it like screwdrivers, also has wood saws for wilderness survival and things like that. And after, just beyond that, I do have a multi-tool, but this really sees the vast majority of the use. The multi-tool only use that if I need like a pair of pliers. And another good thing about having a Swiss Army knife, especially one of this size, is that it has a smaller blade, and that works really well for like letter opening and also opening boxes, because the last thing I want is a bunch of tape gunk or other debris on my dedicated EDC blade. I like to keep it nice and clean and very, very sharp. And carrying the Swiss Army knife, it allows me to do that, and also have functionality to just fix stuff as I'm out and about, and also at home. I don't have to look for a tool sometimes to, like if my kid needs to open up a battery compartment on a toy, you know, just normal everyday stuff. It's very convenient for that. You can tell that she's really used this thing a lot, the way she's struggling. Oh, and she looked like she was going to shank somebody. But, okay, medications. Those, yes, very important to have. One thing I like to do is I will keep a small selection of things like Tylenol, acetaminophen, ibuprofen, and also Pepto in my EDC bag, just to deal with the everyday I don't feel goods that come up just randomly. But at home, I do have a more well-stocked medication supply that's suitable for me, my wife, and then also my son, because remember, little kids do require different medications in some cases. And also be aware that certain things like aspirin and Pepto you don't want to give to younger kids because of complications that could come up. Now, if you have prescriptions, that's another thing that you want to think about. You want to try to get as much of that as you can legally. And a lot of the companies that started off by selling emergency antibiotic kits, they are now selling kind of just emergency supplies of prescriptions to deal with things like diabetes and heart disease. And of course, those emergency antibiotic supplies are good to have as well.
Might need it because you never know. And don't forget something to eat. You might be hungry, very hungry. And of course,
all right, so with the food, okay, you're definitely going to want more than just a few energy bars and then a can of whatever in the world that was. Being in Europe, I really hope it wasn't surströmming, because that stuff is disgusting. But I mean, I guess you could use it as some sort of like stink bomb weapon if you absolutely had to. But as far as food goes, those energy bars, they are actually very good for like your EDC bag and just daily out and about stuff. I like to keep canned goods and dry staples at home for more longer term situations. And then freeze dry meals are good for things like your bug out bag because they don't require hardly any time at all to prepare.
in the middle of the crisis, cash is king, and your credit card might.
So, cash, very good to have, but I would not depend on being able to use it in a situation, just because a lot of places now, if their internet and their electricity is down, a lot of times they're not going to go to the trouble of actually staying open. Some places will, but a lot of places are going to shut down, especially if they have younger folks who may not be the strongest in math. Okay, so while it's good to have, don't bank on being able to go and pick up supplies last minute if everything's already gone to pot.
A charger and a power bank, because a dead phone is a dead bank.
Okay, so phone charger and also a USB battery bank. Those, yes, definitely have those. But when you're at home, also be sure that you have a larger backup power source, preferably something like a solar power option that can keep those devices running long term. You could use it to charge your phone and like rechargeable flashlights, that kind of stuff. And for your bug out bag, you may also want to pick up something like a set of small portable folding solar panels and also a USB battery bank that you can use as sort of a small solar generator.
Playing cards, bit of distraction, never hurt anyone. And don't forget a way.
So playing cards, yes, those are another good thing to have. A lot of the things in here, they're not bad. It's just, like I said, they don't go far enough in some cases. Now, as far as playing cards go, if you can find a set that has like maybe survival tips on it, it could pull double duty. But at home, have things like books, puzzles, board games to help you keep occupied. Wow, that is a truly gigantic radio. So as far as radios go, something like a Midland ER310 that I've shown on the channel several times, those are nice because they'll pick up the most common frequencies like AM, FM, and also NOAA frequencies. And they also have the ability to, utilize a hand crank charge and a small solar panel on top. So you don't really need an external power source for them. They can kind of do that on their own. But on the other side of things, something like a GMRS or ham radio might be good to have as well, because you can use those to communicate with other people in addition to using them to get like your NOAA FM frequencies and things like that. Of course, it'll just depend on the type of radio that you have, as to whether or not it'll be able to pick up things like FM stations and all that other stuff. So do your research, be sure you get the right radio, and just remember some things like ham and GMRS do require a license to use.
You need to survive the first 72 hours of the crisis.
Okay, so that may not be everything that you would need to, survive the first 72 hours of a crisis. And then if a crisis is going to last 72 hours, then there's a very, very good chance that it could last beyond 72 hours. So don't just plan on having that kit by itself. Now, one thing I like here is that she's actually putting it into a backpack, which is significantly better than a purse. I have seen some truly huge purses, but a backpack is always going to be better.
Speaking about being prepared, the EU is preparing its strategy to be sure that every citizen.
So I'm not trying to be a negative Nancy here, but there's no way that a government can ensure that everybody will be safe. So got to kind of take a lot of this into your own hands. I know if you're watching this channel, you're probably a prepper and you already know that, but don't let little things like this give you a false sense of security. Really think for yourself, get as many supplies, and be as well equipped as you possibly can be.
Be safe in case of crisis. Be prepared, be safe.
Okay, so some things that are left out on kind of the more benign side of thing. Batteries, I didn't see those in there, but in their defense, I think they will be coming out with a survival manual sometime eventually, and a lot of the gaps will probably be filled in that, and they'll probably also hopefully cover having maybe more than 72 hours of food and water and all that other stuff, because really that's just not going to be enough. I mean, if you live in a high risk area, even if it's somewhere along the coast where there could be hurricanes and you don't have at least a month's worth of stuff, then you're really putting yourself in a bad situation. Also, another thing I noticed that was left out, and this could be a big problem in Europe, maybe not right now because it's starting to warm up, but you got to think about weather. Like if the temperatures get really, really cold, you're going to need things like blankets if your house has a fireplace, firewood, stuff like that, wool clothing to help you stay warm. Now, one thing that is almost always missing on these different kinds of government emergency kits is going to be defense. And I know that's a whole different animal over in Europe than it is in the United States, but it's still important to figure out ways that you can secure your home, make it harder to get into, and also have ways that if you or your family is threatened, that you can deal with that, because they're the ones that chose to put you in that situation, not you. Now, if you want to see the first $100 that a new prepper should spend, then click here. It's kind of a good intro into slightly more advanced survival kits than what she just did. Or if you want to see how to build an EDC bag, then click here. Thank y'all for stopping by. Y'all have a good one.